Hello, everyone. I'll begin by covering chapter-specific news. Last week, I mentioned the recent decision by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit affirming a lower court decision that a Washington state law prohibits a female-only spa from excluding men. Tonight at 7:30 p.m. ET, we will be hosting a live webinar to discuss this legal development in the fight for women's sex-based rights. The webinar will be facilitated by WDI USA President Elizabeth Chesick and will feature Kerri, who will explain the lead up to the Ninth Circuit decision in Olympus Spa v. Armstrong, why the outcome is unsurprising, and what might be next. Those interested in joining us can still register in the links in the PDF that I shared in the chat. The WDI USA Lesbian Caucus will be holding a lesbian coming out group for 8 weekly sessions starting on June 24th. These online meetings are designed to allow women to discuss with each other as peers the challenges and questions being raised in their lives by lesbianism. Those interested in participating are encouraged to email info@womensdeclaration-usa.com by June 15th, and the caucus will be in touch from there. Next, I'd like to give a shout out to Elizabeth, our Minnesota state contact, who on June 6th, along with DIAG and with support from XXXY Athletics, bravely advocated in support of fair play for women and girls at the Minnesota Girls State Softball Championships in protest of the participation of male pitcher Charlie/Marissa Rothenberger, who dominated throughout the tournament and ultimately led his Champlain Park team to number one, effectively robbing over 100 girls of their chance to shine. Elizabeth reported that the group held signs, handed out flyers and stickers, and engaged with many attendees. While some of those interactions were hostile, many more were supportive, with members of one of the girls' teams that had lost to Champlain Park thanking the women for their support. She also said that multiple media outlets were present, including Outkick, who interviewed and included a quote from her in their article about the event. Moving on to state and national news, last week a federal district court judge granted a preliminary injunction blocking enforcement of a Trump administration executive order prohibiting Federal Bureau of Prisons officials from providing hormone therapy and social accommodations to trans-identified inmates. The court also granted the plaintiff's motion for a class certification and extended injunctive relief to the full class, which encompasses all persons who are or will be incarcerated in BOP facilities and have a current medical diagnosis of gender dysphoria, or who receive that diagnosis in the future. On June 2nd, the Department of Education published a press release recognizing June as Title IX month. June will now be dedicated to commemorating women and celebrating their struggle for and achievement of equal educational opportunity. Throughout the month, the department will highlight actions taken to reverse the Biden administration's legacy of undermining Title IX and announce additional actions to protect women in line with the true purpose of Title IX. The department's Office for Civil Rights also announced the first of its Title IX month initiatives today. Title IX directed investigations into the University of Wyoming and Jefferson County Public Schools in Colorado for allegedly allowing males to join and live in female-only intimate and communal spaces. If you recall, the sorority sisters who challenged University of Wyoming's Kappa Kappa Gamma chapter for admitting a man had their lawsuit dismissed last year by the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. Last month, convicted sex offender Darren Merriger was acquitted on all 9 counts of indecent exposure stemming from the exposure of his genitals to women and girls in the female-only section of the LA Wee Spa back in 2021. Apparently, as Los Angeles Magazine mentions in its coverage of the trial, the jury was asked to decide if the defendant exposed himself with the intent of sexual gratification. And because the prosecution failed to prove he was erect during the incidents, jurors came to a not guilty decision, which is ridiculous, as Kara points out in a detailed Substack piece. Even if he was not in fact sexually aroused, does not mean that his conduct, was not for the purpose of sexual arousal. Yet here we are. And finally, closing on a more positive note, on June 4th, Nebraska became the 28th state to protect female athletes when Governor Jim Pillen signed the Stand with Women Act into law, which requires that all student athletes competing in K through 12 or college sports must do so based on their sex. That's all I have today. Thank you.